God is good. Yeah, I guess we're starting. Hey guys, welcome to Magic City Pagans. So I introduce some people. Of course, you have Bill.
Hi guys.
A special guest, Kelly.
Hi.
She is one of the tarot readers here at Book Beans and Candles. So she's going to, and palmistist, I should say. So she's going to talk a little bit about things like that and bounce some stuff around as we talk and do things like that, and as we do, right?
As we do.
So this week, it's all about divination.
Yes.
Different types of divination. Tarot cards, crystal balls, tassomancy, ogham, runes, which I don't actually have one of the runes, but we have the oracle cards, things like that. So that's what we're going to discuss today, and this is where we're going to be hanging out for the next 30 minutes as we do this. So obviously the first thing we generally talk about, divination. You know, what is divination? You know, what does it come from? Divine, obviously.
Right.
So
So I looked up. I was like, okay, so I want a clear, hard, and fast definition of divination. You know, and it's was basically to acquire knowledge through a standardized occult practice. Some of them said to acquire past knowledge. You know, basically acquiring knowledge through a set practice, whether it be whatever it be,
whatever medium you use.
whatever medium you use.
Yeah, you know, I always think of how I explain like tarot and is that how I look at it. Of course, this is how I look at it. We're all going to be a little different here. The world's going to be different. But it's about, I believe the universe is a super consciousness. All right, we're all part of it. So we're all part of that collective, not like the board, but more like a collective, and that we can tap into it. And so that's how we connect. And I'm using the cards to interpret that connection. You know, some people don't need cards. I'm a little more skeptical with most of them because I think sometimes, you know, we don't want to do what I call the Jackson Square readings, where, you know, you can be led, right? Because all about, for me, it's not about leading. I shouldn't have to ask you questions. I should be able to give you information. So that's sort of how I view that connection. So how do you view it?
I view it in a very similar way. I think you are tapping into something greater than yourself. Whatever you want to call it, higher consciousness, the divine, whatever you want to choose to call it. The question I get most often is how much of it is intuition, how much of it is a set system, and I honestly think the answer is both.
I agree.
You know, because you're using that system, whatever it is, whether it's cards or scrying or ogham or tea leaf reading, tassomancy. That's the system that you use, but there is an intuitive aspect to it where that is when you tap in, that is when you use that, and then use the medium to interpret.
Yeah, that's generally how I do it.
I kind of see it a lot like, especially when y'all were talking about that. To me, it reminds, I think of it like the old switchboard operators.
Yeah.
And it's answering different questions. You're plugging into different parts of the universe or universal consciousness, or into your ability to understand what the medium has provided in front of you.
Right.
And that's kind of how I look at it.
And I think it's a generally good overall view of, how we feel it's connected, how it works.
Mm-hmm.
There's obviously going to have difference of opinions on all that.
Yes.
That's okay. It's just how we view it, and this is what we're going to go with. So let's talk a little about the different types of divination that we use. Let's start with tassomancy.
Okay.
All right. So tassomancy, what is it?
Tea leaf reading.
Or coffee grounds.
Or coffee grounds.
Or wine.
Or
wine. So what are we actually reading?
You're reading the remains, stains.
The sediments. What's left. That's why you can do it on. So actually anything that had a sediment or leaving, like whether it's tea leaves, coffee grounds, wine, anything like that. Hell, you can even take mud.
Mm-hmm.
If you got gravel into it, it's anything like that. So that's what you're reading. All right. So that tassomancy, and of course, in the teas, what we're going to actually focus on today, on a short period, because I don't do tassomancy.
Yeah,
person I had to do tassomancy is not here today. So, but we do it. And it's about where the tea also falls, how high up the cup, what forms, what shapes are being formed. These are all different parts of it. And that is definitely where that intuition comes in, because, you can look at it, I can look at it, we may see different things,
Right.
But that's the whole point. It's my intuition. I see this. What does that mean to me? What do I feel when I see that? And that's the important part of doing those sediment readings, is that intuition kicks in, and this is what this means. So
Sort of balance in all things.
yeah, it really is. So that's tassomancy in a general, very short-lived.
Very good overview.
Well, one question I would have mental is how much would be the energy that the person is putting into the cup?
You're right, because the idea is that they would drink it, and what's left, so it's their reading.
Right.
And so, it'd be like, take time. And of course, we don't want to know ahead of time,
Right.
because ethically, I don't want to violate any of that. I don't have any preconceived ideas.
Right.
You're supposed to read the leaves, not the person.
Yep.
Right. And that often not the case. So
I can see that.
That's one of the problems I have with certain other types of readings, that I'm not saying they're not valid, but sometimes I think their methodology is wrong, or it's flawed. Too open for outside influences, whether it's your body language or things you've said. I don't want that to affect my reading, because again, I'm not reading the person's body or their facial, I'm reading the cards or the tea, and that's very important to us. So like my readers, they'll test, when they get tested, there are no questions. There's no talking. The only person talking is the person doing the reading. And to me, that's very important. And they have to get it right.
Oh, I know. I know you do this.
So, these are important things.
It's
like,
in what you were just saying, to me, it kind of goes across all the mediums, at least the ones that I am aware of, and there are a lot. Not imparting your own preconceived idea or your influence on it, especially when it comes to things like pendulum.
Yeah.
And when we get to the pendulum, I'll tell you the little trick that I learned about. But I could see that very much skewing, and people being very unethical, people being very, the charlatans and stuff, and the sideshow charlatans,
right.
Very much using that to their advantage by reading the person and not the medium that they were using, be it tarot cards, crystal ball, whatever.
Right. Yeah, let's talk a little about the crystal balls. It's our scrying.
Yes.
I don't use crystal balls. I have used the black mirror. I don't have a black mirror here today, but I do use the black mirror. Now, I usually do that from personal. I don't do that professionally for other people. Not that I wouldn't necessarily, but it would be like you're sitting down and be like, okay, I'm getting information, and then I'd have to go and see. It's something that I would do privately, and then come back and go, hey, this is what I got. But I don't do a lot of that. Crystal balls, no. Like I said, black mirror scrying, not an issue. But I usually do it for myself, not for somebody else. And it is that ability to unfocus, see what images come to you. The hard part is, this image comes in, what does it mean?
Right.
Now you got to interpret it. And that's one thing I love about the cards, because they help out a little bit on that side of interpreting those things, because they do have set pictures. They do have this. Now, of course, we all know that in the tarot card itself, it may have 50 different imageries within that one card. It does help, go, okay, I know the Two of Swords means this.
Right.
So a little bit easier for me to deal with that, and things like that. So what about,
one of the things about the crystal ball is, putting the candle in front of it and reading the reflection as the light refracts coming through and seeing things. And I know you have several. You used to have one of those more clear quartz. It looked like it was all shattered on the inside, which gave some great reflection of light. The patterns and stuff is really interesting. There's that. It can be used for more than one way for divination.
Oh, absolutely. And one of the big things is, in typical, we go, hey, is a natural quartz crystal versus the leaded glass, which is, by the way, still crystal lead. So, but no, it really, I don't think it has anything of difference. Yes, if it has those inclusions like this one does, then you may get a lot more different images coming from it. But in reality, to me, it doesn't really make that much of a difference.
A lot of it's personal preference.
Flowers pros. And the difference is, if you take a crystal ball like this, which is obviously clear, it's green, it's clear, no inclusions, that one really generally runs about $35, right?
Right.
Well, one like that, that's going to be clear like that, that's a $500 crystal. If you're going to have it that clear.
Right.
This, if it was perfectly clear, it'd be $1,000 plus.
Yeah.
Just because it's more rare. To find one with no occlusions,
Right.
how big did that thing have to be when you started?
Yeah.
So massive to get down to that. So, legitimately, if someone goes, "Oh, it's real, it's a natural crystal found this way," and they polished it and shaped it down by cutting it and then polishing it, that thing is going to be beyond reasonable price.
Right.
So, congrats if you have one, because that's a find. But that's why, in my opinion, it's ideas. I'm unfocusing my eyes. I'm seeing what images come from it, whether it's a crystal ball, a glass ball, a mirror, a candle, a bowl full of water.
Right.
That's drawing, raking the moon.
Oh, yeah. Sliding it out.
Yeah.
And bring
Which,
it back.
by the way, if you guys have never heard of raking the moon, this is where generally the elder, the wise woman, the cunning folk, the peller, would have a bowl, shallow bowl, and then the client, generally female, most often, not every time, would take a bottle, urinate in a bottle, they pour it in there, and they take the rake, which is like a pitchfork, and push it out into the water on a full moon, and they scry into it. And it's often about pregnancy, marriage, things like that. And when they get back, they take it, they pour it back into the bottle, and it back to the client. So that's raking the moon, but it's really the same premise. You're scrying into something. Of course, in this case, you're scrying into the urine because it's them. It's absolutely 100% them.
Part of them.
Yeah. So there's that DNA aspect of that.
And you got three elements of water going together. Then you have the urine, then you have the lake or pond you're putting it on, then you have the moon aspect of it.
Right. And of course,
Full moon. So you get water.
Yep. And of course, the moon itself,
Yeah.
which is all about the hidden mysteries and things. So you'll see that a lot. So let's talk a little bit about pendulums real quick. Before arrow is off. Like the coffin. No, I don't have to. All right. The pendulum. Tarot is going to be the biggest, longest topic we have, just because it's massive.
Right.
And it's what we do every day. So, the pendulum, that's a tricky one, isn't it?
Yes.
Here's the thing. I've had these arguments with people. If you're holding a pendulum, your hand is going to move.
Mm-hmm.
You are not. I'm sorry, you can't defy physics.
Right.
You cannot hold your hand perfectly still.
No.
The thing is, that's okay.
Sure.
The vibration will cause it to move. The difference is I'm not trying to make it move a certain direction.
Don't influence it.
Right. So if it just moves, and then I start asking it questions, that tells me. The difference is, this is where ethics really come in your discipline, is that I'm not trying to make it go this way.
Based on what you
or
think the
this
other
way.
person wants to do.
Right. It's you have to hold it still as you can, and those micro movements give it energy.
Here's a question I have for you.
Yeah.
Do you hold yours up like this, or do you put your arm on the table?
I've done it all different ways.
The reason I ask is, to me, a couple times I've used mine, I did that because I didn't want my ankle. I thought I would be more.
Well, you are.
wiggly.
I mean, the thing is, it's going to move, but right now, if you walk across the floor, you're going to vibrate the floor.
Absolutely.
So to me, I'll put my hand on it and I'll start asking questions. Of course, and I'll ask, show me yes, show me no. Because that's what I use pendulums for.
Right.
Is doing my yes and no questions, or
Very, very simple.
where the hell are my keys?
Right.
Are
they in this room? Yes.
Well, a great thing to do is, okay, so let's say you lost your key. Let's just stick on that one. So draw a picture of your house and hold it over some parts of the house where it starts to move. All right, then okay, it's on the first floor. Then you can draw out your first floor real quick, a little map. Bedroom, living room, kitchen. Oh, kitchen. Okay. Living room, you can draw the kitchen. Okay. And it's open in the drawer. And I've done that here when people lost their stuff. Sure enough.
Yeah.
You'll find it. And it's like, so, there's ways, so it can give you more than just yes and no's. It's just picking up the energy, like ley lines. We all heard of witching for water, right? Or
Yes.
perfect example story I always tell is when I bought this place, of course they had to come out and they had to mark all the lines, right? Now it's out in power. They sent out their hired people. And this guy, has a $60,000 what they call a fruit meter. So you check all things and you plug it in, you can see whether, great for running cable and stuff like that. and they check everything where everything is. He didn't pick. He just set a sign. He picks up 2 rods. He walks through my yard. Boop, spray paint. Boop, spray paint.
Wow.
I went, I thought that's fitting. How perfect for this place.
Yeah.
But he found the gas lines and boom, boom, boom. He nailed them. So he had that ability by using that old technology to do that. And things that we don't hear. So it's just that witching, so-called dowsing.
Right.
You know, we have to call it witching for water or witching for this. You know, he would call that. You know, but an old timer doing those things. So, you guys anything about emblems or anything? Ready to go on? Yeah.
Quick note about dowsing rods.
Yeah.
Something that I found, and I learned this from an old guy when I was a kid. He suggested, and I did this, copper wire.
Yeah.
The reason being is because you cannot hold it tight enough to keep it from moving. If you're like, oh, this doesn't work, I'm going to hold it. You cannot hold a piece of wire to keep that little wire from moving in your hand.
Oh, absolutely.
So that's right. I use copper wire.
Yeah, just like, and I've like, you know, I've used actually taken old wire coat hangers.
Yeah.
Cut, fit. Because again, it's tiny. You're not going to control it. And I've done it. I'm like, whoop, and step back, whoop. And I'm like,
Done.
okay, that's freaky.
Have you seen the water witches? You know, however you want to put that. I've heard that phrase used for water diviners who use the branches.
Yes.
Willow branches are excellent for that.
Yep. Because, you know, they always
With
run
the
into
water.
So yes, absolutely. So there's
Right.
all these different ways, you know, you can do things like that. Of course, for those people who are watching this in the UK, you're probably like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
did this last week. You know,
Obviously, yeah.
you know, duh. You know,
With the branches ones, it's too, they point up and down
Right.
versus crossing.
Okay.
that pull.
Yeah.
You feel,
That's
feel
something I
pull
don't
to
think
it.
you see as much
No.
here.
Not here. I imagine the Appalachian area, you'll probably see
Right.
it more still. The old folk magic.
Believe it or not, it was in northeast Wisconsin where I learned this.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
the guy, I mean, he was
They were looking for cheese.
beer. They were looking for a beer line, but yeah.
That's cool. Cool. All right, so let's talk about a little bit about palmistry.
Okay. So palmistry's been around for a very, very, very long time. And the way I have always perceived this on my own and the way that I've practiced it is it's a map of who you are. You've got different mounts of the hand, you've got different lines of the hand, and all of these sort of correspond to different parts of you as a person. There can be a sort of a predictive element to it, like I can see trends. Like if you know, the path you're on, this is the trend that you will see. For example, in your love life or in your fate, you know, like your work life, your career, your lifeline, your sort of life path. And so you basically you're interpreting this part of your hand. It's reading the map of who you are. And like I said, this has been around for many years. And there's different aspects to it. You know, this is, in fact, some very famous people have had palmists who helped them making decisions. You know, Winston Churchill had a palmist. I'm trying to think of some others off the top
I'm
of my
sure if
head.
Nancy Reagan had that. I think she's an
She
She an
astrologist.
astrologist, yeah.
Yeah, she did Roosevelt. Was it Roosevelt that had the
I think you may be right on that, but you know, basically
Yeah.
helping them make decisions and seeing you different life events as things happen in your life. The lines on your hand are going to change slightly. You know, it sort of records your history.
It's really cool. And I do know that some palmists will use it for that divination aspect
Right.
of the future. Okay, ooh, there's a split in your love life, so you can expect that there's going to be a divorce or it's going to take a left-hand turn.
Right.
You know, but to me, it's definitely more like generalization. A lot like astrology. 'Cause astrology is
Yeah.
all about characteristics
And who
too,
you are.
and who you are, and those influences on you. Things. So I often compare palmistry similar to astrology. Astrology is massive. And
Right.
you get the transients. You know, astrology definitely has, okay, your Saturn returns, you know, this is going to happen. Oh, hey, next week, this planet here,
Mhm.
it's going to have these influences on you. So watch out, you may get short-tempered,
Right.
you know. So things like that with astrology. And we're definitely not going to jump into astrology with this one because that could take an hour or
Oh yeah, that would be.
massive.
Yeah.
All right.
That's a whole nother.
Anything left? That good?
about palmistry?
Yeah.
Yes, actually. So
Okay.
one thing that I like that you do, because I've had you read my palm before, is I presumed, because one, I never had it done, and because I'm left-handed, that you don't read the dominant hand.
I don't.
Now, is that something that you specifically don't do, or is that
It's-
a way?
It's a way of doing it.
Okay.
You know, I like that part because the way I learned
Mhm.
was the dominant hand is the projective hand. That's the part of yourself you're comfortable showing with the world.
Okay.
The non-dominant hand is kind of who you really are. And I kind of like to dig in to who you really are, that sort of underlying
Sun versus
personality.
rising.
Yeah, sun versus rising would be a good way to put that. Yeah, and I really like that because it's more intimate to me.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get ready to jump into a few of the things. Ohm. So if you guys don't know what ohm is, ohm are tree staves here. They're different symbols that represent different things for, in this case, much like runes.
Right.
You're casting, you're throwing. Because we all think, sortilege. You're throwing the bones, you're throwing the stones, runes, you're actually casting these out. So,
yeah, okay, so Mitchell, so for those folks who don't know, when you say ohm, what is ohm?
well, it's not Ogham.
Correct.
Right.
Regardless of what even some of the British documentaries I've seen, it is not Ogham.
Yeah.
What is ohm?
All right, so ogham is a Celtic form of language, really.
So it's like an alphabet.
It is an alphabet. It is, you'll see it through Ireland, stone markers.
Mm-hmm.
So whether it was marking someone's field or a distance, I think that's still up to debate because you have different types of ohm based on, like this one's based off trees.
Right.
All right. So who knows at the time what they were using theirs for, in what language they're actually, what they're trying to communicate. Yeah, thank you. Ow, there's something I can't do right now.
It's okay.
But so you throw them depending on what falls, how they triangulate, the farther from the circle. This, the mat, it tells you how much influence it has, and sooner or later kind of thing. And how they're connected is how they triangulate with each other. So which is influencing which is more and more.
So like patterns.
Patterns. Like if you got, let's say take soil, which is really easy. If you're throwing the bones, and let's say you throw it and you got a dime over here and a tooth right next to it. Ooh, you're probably going to have some dental work coming up. That's going to yes, and it's going to be maybe a little cost more than you might like it to. So because they're in triangulation with each other, but it's out in the mat, so that may be at the end of the year where you see that, or closer in, a couple of weeks you may be seeing this.
Right.
So that's the same thing with ohm. You're really doing the same exact thing after you're doing it. Now there's different ways to cast. There's some things where you grab and you take 3 or 5 and you go, okay, put here, you put here, 11 reverse, and you read them that way.
Okay.
There's oak, oak string, so you may part of this, and of course they have correspondence and more than that. So it just depends on how the person throws that. Like runes, sometimes you pull, boom, 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 much like almost tarot cards, right?
Mm-hmm.
Except the same way. So that's really with ogham runes, pretty much done the same way.
So it's up for a lot of personalization.
Just like tarot, we can all have our own different spreads. Okay. So that's your ogham. It's a cool way to do it. Little things. We talked about the pendulums. You talked about cassomancies. Before we jump into tarot, because I know that's the biggie.
Yeah.
What's the difference between tarot and oracle?
I get that question all the time.
Do you? It's like,
and I'm not even sure I have the correct answer. I have my answer.
Okay.
Tarot is more of I hate using this word, but more rigid or structured system. Generally you're going to have meanings attached to the cards. It's something that you learn through the system. And of course, again, that intuitive aspect that comes into play. Oracle's a little more nuanced. They're very different. Each deck is going to be different. Usually it's going to be the point of view of the creator of the deck. It can be very specific or it can be very general. You're going to have a lot of them with like these little books that come through. That's going to tell you the meanings of the cards that the creator came up with. And the messages are going to be a little more generalized, like different aspects of your life. It's going to be different messages. A lot of Oracle, I hate using this word too, tends to be a little more fluffy, a little more upbeat, a little lighter tone, a little more encouraging, because sometimes tarot will punch you in the face.
So
often.
It would be a difference between getting a slap on the hand and getting your butt kicked.
Yeah, or a little warm hug.
Hi,
yeah,
it's okay.
It's gonna be fine.
Bam.
Right. But again, it depends on the deck. Some of them are darker. I have darker decks. This one is not quite as warm as as this one. And also different areas that that particular creator was interested in.
So, all right, it's time to jump into tarot. Dun, 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 dun.
Doom.
Ooh, walk away. It's like run. All right, so tarot.
That was good.
Yeah, it's like, there was a tower like, crap, well, again, hey, there you go. Maybe we should stop talking. That's like, all right. So, when it comes to tarot, I have my own spread, you have your own spread.
Right.
There are thousands, 1,000s of different spreads. Tarot generally, I would say probably 90%, maybe a little higher than that, 78 cards.
Yes.
You have the minor or the pips, and you have the majors. I'll just talk it. It's not good for me. Jump in there, Kelly, 'cause apparently I'm going to call up my way through this.
So your majors are going to be your overarching life themes. This is the big stuff.
Significant.
The
Really
significant,
more important.
exactly. And the minors are going to kind of fill in the gaps and give you more details and dig into sort of the more everyday aspects.
Yeah, so if you get a reading that's like all the majors are showing up,
You're kind of getting screamed at.
yeah, it's definitely
There's a
there.
message there.
There's a message there.
And there's, just like Oracle, there's thousands of decks.
Right.
Certain ones people like better, certain spreads. The big thing is, there's really, I guess, like two fundamental schools, the Marseille,
And the Rider-Waite.
right, and of course there's the
Lenormand.
Lenormand, thank you, never say that.
Yeah.
Lenormand. Of course, there's also just Discardaments,
Right.
which the Lenormand's closer to that, than like tarot. So people sometimes just take a protect us. Oh, the Jack is this, this, and this.
Right.
But like the Marseille, I don't think there's, especially in the minors, there's not as much. There's no imagery.
It's just sort of rigid memorization
In
some ways.
Yeah, it's a little more rigid. Where
Right.
if you've got, if you pull the Eight of Cups every time for the third time, that represents into the next walking away, but the mountains are far away, so it has a lot more interpretation there. I can look into that and go, full moon, you got 8 cups, she's got a staff, she's dressed really well, white hair, there's water coming down the side, so there's a lot more to that card than just 8 cups. Right. So for me, tarot with personalized decks like your deck, your Lumina deck's going to be different. So it's going to have a different flavor. And it's like still going to have that base meaning, but they'll have the nuances definitely more. And if I'm doing a reading, that intuition, it may pick up on, to me, more, well, it is about walking away, but you know what? You've got these high mountains that look tough, but you know what? There's a path.
Right.
And
There's a way through.
There's a way through it, and there's an easier way, or you can take the hard way.
Right.
How do you want to do it? So if you're paying attention and you go with more of the flow, the river, then you're going to find it much probably easier to make this journey in walking away from something instead of climbing the freaking Rockies or Mount Everest.
Right.
All right. So there's a lot there within those, and of course, in the majors, is telling a story. It's a journey. The Fool, the Magician, the High Priestess, all the way through. And of course, the lovely Tower. Burn it all down.
Right.
How we feel about it. So that's really tarot.
I have an important question to ask you, Mitchell.
Well, I'll do that.
Does someone have to give you your first tarot deck? I get asked that question.
I do too, and I wish someone would give me tarot decks.
So do I.
Yeah. I have actually never had a deck given to me.
Neither have I.
Have you not?
Nope. I have bought my first deck. I don't know where that got started. Maybe because when if you learned how to do tarot, you had a mentor, and they may give you your first deck. But
There is a historical aspect to that too.
Well, they're hard to get back.
Well, it was hard to get, and they were treasured possessions, so you would pass them down.
Right.
So just out of curiosity, so what time period are we talking here for that?
Oh gosh, I always get the century. This 16th century, maybe?
16th, 17th centuries. Well,
Okay,
Yeah,
so 1600s.
Yeah, 1600s.
Okay.
The original
And-
Tarochi used to be a card game.
Right. No, that I did know.
And it's because you're right. Because there was, you didn't have mass printing.
Right.
You had a good press, but it wasn't like, so, they all had, most of them hand drawn.
Sure.
So if you got it, there wasn't a whole lot of these running out there.
Yeah, I can see that.
And they were expensive, so I could see where it got passed down from person to person. That's how you got it. Because you didn't have a ton of people doing it back then. It wasn't like, today where we have mass printing.
More like a family thing. That's
A family thing, or like I said, you had an apprentice, and I'm old. I'm
Yeah.
handing you, I'm retiring, or I've already got another deck now. I'm giving these cards to you.
Right.
But no, I get people all the time who go, oh, you have to be, given to you. Why?
Exactly.
I mean,
Find a deck you like, go for it.
yep. If it calls to you, go with it.
So here's one for you guys. So, can I read cards for myself?
Of course you can.
Sure.
Okay. Would my energy not be influencing my decision or the card?
It can, definitely.
Absolutely.
Which is why generally on a serious matter, I don't read for myself.
I go to somebody else.
Yeah, because the whole thing is, and it's not, I go the actually opposite extreme.
Okay.
I can throw me, because I want to go to Ireland.
Right.
Should I go to Ireland right now? Or let's say Bonaire. I'm going to go diving. So I do Bonaire. And I play the cards and I'm like, well, it actually says it's a good idea. But I'm going to go, now am I just reading that as making it a good idea? And it really is a bad idea, but I just want it so bad that I'm going to make it. So it probably does it. I actually go the other way and I'll sabotage my reading that way.
Right.
Because now I'm influencing this too much. That's why. Because that's what I want.
Right.
Right.
What if it really was though? Well, it's a good idea. I mean,
Yeah.
but I just screwed it up because this is what I want. Therefore, it can't really be that. If I want it, then it really can't happen.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
Which is stupid. The problem though is that's how I do it. And some people will use tarot. Oh, it was a good idea. No, it didn't. My God, you had the tower. Well, how did you get a good idea out of that? Or
Well, no, I do read for myself every day.
well, I
Oh,
know,
well,
But
I
it's
get
a
it.
check-in.
Right.
I'm just checking in. This is my theme for the day. This is what I need to look for today.
I do tarot card a day. I do
Right.
rune a day.
Right.
My big thing is I'm not anything significantly
Right.
important. Then I actually still do it, but then I'm going to go to someone else and go, hey, can I get a reading and see if they're lining up.
Yeah.
And then I go, okay, because I think you're right. I mean, we can, if we want something bad enough, we're really good at justifying what we want.
Our
My problem is they end up going the other way for me
Right.
because I know that and I feel
You're
guilty
going to
about
talk
it.
yourself out
I
of
talk
it.
myself out of it.
One thing that I learned from you was, in learning tarot or in getting started was to take a card a day
Mhm.
and carry that card with you and write down your interpretation of what that card meant. And then after 78 days, then go look at the book that came with the deck of cards and see what the person who put that deck together, what their idea was, and see how well they lined up.
Yeah, and merge them together.
Yeah.
So that's how I was taught.
Absolutely.
All right. So we got through everything?
I think
I
so.
would like to throw one thing out there because I thought it's kind of interesting.
Okay.
Augurs and the auspices.
Okay.
Are you familiar?
I am not.
Okay. So back in the days of good old Rome and Caesar and such,
Right.
they had what was known as an augur in auguries, which was the reading of bird flights.
Bird flights.
Okay. And it was the reading of it was known as the auspices,
Ah, okay.
which is the
That makes sense.
where something being auspicious came from.
Okay.
Now here's the cool thing. They would read the type of bird, the flight pattern, the number of birds in the pattern, things like that. The only problem with it is they were heavily influenced politically. They as with many things of ye olde days of circa BC,
Right.
they could be bought and or heavily influenced for favors, like the oracles at Delphi, like the augurs of Rome, and the Etruscans. But I just thought it was really cool. So I did in doing research for this one, I looked up methods of divination.
Mhm.
Now, while
Loud.
right, so while I am not a big fan of Wikipedia for things metaphysical, I found a link. And it led me to Wikipedia methods of divination. And it is an alphabetical list of probably, I would say, well over 200 by alphabet methods of divination. And it's basically, after reading it, it seems like very geographical. Like people used what they had.
Absolutely.
Because there's readings of, reading of ice. Well, if you're in the desert, you're not going to read ice. But that
You
was
better be drinking it.
reading of the sand, reading of animals, mountains, entrails. They used what they had.
Yeah.
And have been doing it since time immemorial.
Yeah. Well, it's like, speaking of birds, like, here in Alabama,
Right.
people go, I saw crows. We're like,
They live
Yeah.
they
here.
live here. They're migratory birds. You're
Right.
going to see crows, especially, spring and
Uh-huh.
fall. They travel a lot. So seeing a crow doesn't mean jack.
Right.
Now, if you start seeing 5 crows here, 5 crows there, the 5 keeps popping up, that's when you start, or is that, every day a crow pecks on my window.
That's, yeah.
It's the patterns, it's the behavior that often I'd actually look at, not necessarily for here, for the birds, especially if you're talking about crows, because
They're everywhere.
They're everywhere. I saw a crow. Yeah, I saw 20. So look at the patterns. If this number keeps up, because that gets you into whole numerology.
Right.
That gets you into that side of things. Oh, what does this mean? What does this mean? If you find certain things, a pattern. There's so many things. So look at patterns as well will help divination. So that's a big thing, especially with birds.
Divination will crow true. So seeing one crow, or I'm sorry, ravens. Seeing one raven, probably associated with Morgan. Seeing 2 ravens, associated with Odin. Seeing 3 ravens, possibly associated with Morgan. Seeing 9 ravens, something about the pizza box.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you're at Sam's. it's like, because you're like, going, there are a lot of crows here. People drop a lot of stuff here. It's like, yes. So, all right. You guys got anything else?
I'm good.
I don't think
Okay.
so.
Well, thank you guys so much, because apparently that's our alarm going off to let us know that it's time.
Absolutely.
So thank you for joining us again. This is Magic City Pagans at Books, Beans, and Candles. And we'll see you guys for Tea and Tarot next time. And in a month, we'll see you for Magic City Pagans again. And if you guys are in town or live close, don't forget we have our psychic fair coming up on the 22nd of September, 24th. 24th of September, which is fall 22nd. That's the big party. That's in October. So 24th, we'll have Ellen Dugan here. She'll be doing readings. And the Friday night, she'll be teaching a class on traditional witchcraft in a modern setting. Yep.
And call to set up your appointments ahead of time, because this will sell out.
Yes. You don't have to.
Right.
You can take, and show
You can
up. Risk it. But it's always best if you pre-book everything. That way you don't have to worry about it. You're set. You show up at your time. And you get your slot. And your time is already set.
Absolutely.
Right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And
Thank you.
we'll see you guys next time.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
And then the stare me and leave studio.